let's discuss good old collaboration. So collaborating for LED. So this morning, Marion gave us a definition of local economic development that we in the program adopts. And this definition speaks of a process. It speaks of a participatory process where a number of stakeholders collaborate and work collectively in order to come up with desired outcomes of economic development, employment generation, and a good quality of life for all. So, but why? Why are we doing local economic development? I think, as local government leaders, you are very well in the know of the situation that we are trying to respond to. So every day we read in the newspapers, we hear over television and radio of news of OFWs coming home because of the Middle East crisis and even early on the Japan disaster. Then last April, we graduated thousands of new graduates who are now entering our labor market. Added to that, there is a slow recovery in our traditional markets, and therefore our industry is likewise suffering. OFW remittances, which kept us afloat for some time, will be greatly reduced, and we need to support micro, small, and medium enterprises that is responsible for 92% of jobs, of economic growth rather, and 3.3 billion jobs, plus poverty reduction. And why local? Local because we want to respond locally to this global crisis because it's the only way to have a sustainable response to this crisis. It brings together local actors in the community in crafting an inclusive LED strategy. And that is why for this conference, we ask that a team come, which includes the private sector. It builds on local assets. It is protective of the environment, it is pro-poor, and it builds the capacity of LGUs and local communities. So in the program, the first order of the day when we started was to craft a LED framework. So DILG, assisted by the program, developed what we call the Local Economic Development Framework, or the LED framework. So it positions alternative mechanisms for various institutions to facilitate and support LED. But it is a work in progress, so it's not quite done. And it starts with converging national agencies with LED functions to assist LGUs and their communities in their LED initiatives. Thereby, what Lucy earlier said, a whole of government approach. So the process that it took to develop the LED framework was lengthy and tedious because there are really a great number of national government agencies that have LED mandates. So we did an institutional mapping of these agencies, including their policies and programs. The mapping included face-to-face interviews, group discussions, research, desk research, etc. And what we produced was what we call the State of LED report. The State of LED report paints the institutional landscape of LED in the Philippines, but focused only on two economic drivers, namely tourism and agribusiness. So what are the key findings of the State of LED report? I think you are familiar with all of this. First, there are numerous NGA programs and services available to LGUs, but mostly directed towards enterprise development. There are a few programs for developing LED champions or improving the enabling environment for LED. So there is no problem insofar as supply is concerned, enough supply. NGA programs and services are mandates-driven and sectoral in orientation, sometimes not responsive to local needs, which often cut across the agency's jurisdiction and mandates. I think you all know that when it comes down to solving real problems on the ground, they go beyond the mandates and jurisdictions of national agencies. So they cut across several agencies. Weak horizontal coordination among national agencies poses a tremendous challenge to LGUs that have to deal with many agencies for needed resources. On the other hand, poor vertical coordination leaves most LGUs ignorant of many national programs. So why does government need to work together for LED? First, there is a need to bridge the horizontal divide in government. So we call it the horizontal divide. So national agencies with various mandates which are not necessarily talking to one another. And I think Secretary De Los Reyes mentioned that likewise. And instead have a strategic, collaborative, and coordinated approach to the delivery of LED services and support by national level agencies. Government has to adjust to the challenges of the 21st century. So it is an era of both fiscal restraints and entrepreneurial revolution. Thirdly, to support LGUs and their stakeholders who are in the forefront of efforts to bring economic development to rural and often underserved areas. Fourth, the current two-track delivery system, where both NGAs and LGUs initiate the bold activities independently, has created intergovernmental coordination issues. And finally, the LGUs deal and transact with many national programs and national actors and agencies aside from their constituents. So government as a LED enabler. So there are basically two actors in local economic development: the promoters and the enablers and the producers. So generally, it is government that functions as the enabler or the promoter. Government shape the enabling environment by, first, designing and implementing LED-related policies. Second, enforcing LED-related regulations, providing infrastructure and social services, providing promotion and facilitation assistance, and building and maintaining an overall climate that is investment-friendly and conducive to business attraction, retention, and expansion. So this is the primary role of government as enabler, facilitator, or regulator. So failure in this role will degrade the environment for LED and discourage investors. So what is an effective government role in LED? One, alignment of LED policies and regulatory frameworks. So Secretary Robredo mentioned this morning in his speech that in some cases, the policies of national government and local governments are not aligned. Not only that, you go to one LGU and then transfer to another LGU, you find out that their policies are not aligned either. Or even among national agencies. Various national agencies have different policies that are not aligned. Harmonization of mandates and functions of LED-related institutions. Coordinated delivery of LED programs and services, and a holistic approach to capacity development of LED institutions and stakeholders. Next. Okay. Now, in developing the LED framework, we also try to study we also try to look at a theoretical underpinning which is public entrepreneurship. So it is a theory in public administration that gained popularity during the time, if you remember Osborne and Gabler, no? In reinventing government. So public entrepreneurship. So what is public entrepreneurship? It's not necessarily government doing business, competing with the private sector. So it means the practice of innovation, experimentation, and creativity in the public domain and in the public interest. So these are characteristics that we see in the private sector and which we are trying to bring into the public realm. The introduction of technological and organizational innovations. So maybe instead of a flatter bureaucracy, no? Being alert to opportunities, exercising good judgment over deployment of resources under uncertainty, new ways to make or distribute new products and services. So it's not the usual. Increasing government's capacity to respond to issues of quality of life. Marion already showed you this slide this morning. No? So what is the LED framework? So it is an innovative whole-of-government approach to pursuing LED that provide mechanisms for NGAs, private sector, academe, and NGOs to converge resources, coordinate, and collaborate to assist communities implement LED. It does not set out a detailed policy and program to pursue economic growth, but rather emphasizes that government, both national and local, are enablers, complementors, and facilitators of LED. And it is the private enterprises that are the major producers for LED. It organizes current policies, programs, and services into 3 windows to ensure comprehensive access to a bundled programs and services that respond to the LED requirements of LGUs and communities. So why the bundling? Because we want to ensure that the building the capacity of communities and LGUs is in a comprehensive manner. So it's not all enterprise development, but we also need to improve systems and procedures in local governments for LED to flourish. So the LED framework looks like this. So you have the actors, NGAs, with LED-related mandates on one hand, and on the other hand, you have the academe, the private sector, and other stakeholders. They come together on a common platform to harmonize policies and programs. And we call this the National Economic Transformation Team. Okay, so at the regional and provincial level, we have a similar mechanisms. No? field offices of national agencies coming together likewise for a regional or a provincial economic transformation team. So the local economic transformation team. So these are the action teams that actually give support to local governments and the communities. And they see to it that the interventions, the LED interventions, are comprehensive and holistic by seeing to it that there are interventions to create LED champions with entrepreneurial mindsets in the LGUs and community, seeing to it that the LGU policies, programs, and processes are enhanced to create an enabling environment for LED, and finally, to see to it that there are interventions or assistance to build viable local enterprises. So what are some of the examples of activities that are ongoing in these different LED service windows? So in window 1, which is entrepreneurial leadership development, the LGA has a program on LED fundamentals for local chief executives, the LGU economic team, and the local private sector partners. So by the way, LGA also has a NEO program, no, for newly elected officials, which can also be a venue for building leadership in economic governance. There are also various academic and executive development programs given by various institutions, academic or non-academic. So for LGUs and community leaders. Now, examples of programs to improve the entrepreneurial systems and procedures are the ongoing DTI, DILG, BPLS, streamlining, and standardization. Technical assistance on local investment incentives code updating, as well as the updating of revenue codes. That is done by DILG and BOI, and DILG and BLGF. Technical assistance on PPP for LGUs with NEDA, the PPP Center, and DILG. So last week, we were in a conference on PPP for LGUs. And I think the PPP Center is getting ready with DILG to be able to craft a program that will assist local governments who want to go into public-private partnership. Now, there are many national programs of government for enterprise development. So, for example, in the DA, they have quite a number of programs and services for farmers, for in agribusiness. So they have Agri-Pinoy advocacy and technical assistance for organic agriculture. DOST, DTI, TESDA, DOLE, they have a host of programs giving technical and financial assistance to local governments as well as civil society organizations, livelihood programs. The DTI has a NERBA, business advising and product design. Okay, so that's the LED framework, and the examples given are services available from national agencies of government. But if you are a local government who want to assist communities in LED, some of the examples of activities in each window are for entrepreneurial leadership development. LGUs can go into partnerships with academic institutions in the locality for LED knowledge networks. So part of our program actually would be to model this kind of a LED knowledge network in the areas where we will be working. For entrepreneurial systems improvement, some examples that you can do or are already doing, in fact, are regulatory simplification for BPLS. So you just heard examples in the other ballroom this afternoon. One-stop shops, investment promotion centers, so having websites for containing economic information, information for investors, etc. Tourism Information Center and website, and your Citizens Charter. And for enterprise development, LGUs can go into business incubation facilities. So you can have facilities for business startups so that, as they find their way in the business world, they have the assistance that can be given by local government units. Joint ventures and other public-private partnership modalities can be entered into by local government units. You can give assistance to social enterprises of your farmers, of your market vendors, and finally, your economic enterprises. So you can run your economic enterprises in a more business-like way so that they become profit centers instead of cost centers, which they are today. Okay. So to achieve LED, what do we need? We need harmonized national government support for LED, business-friendly environment, LED strategies, PPP, and other methodologies. You need leaders who are vision builders, results-oriented, risk-takers, and innovative. Then you need to improve your systems so that you are friendly to investors and businesses, so that you are able to attract, you are able to retain, and you are able to help them expand their businesses. And of course, very important, you can provide the necessary infrastructure so that, people can do business. Then the community will enjoy the benefits of local economic development. Now, in the program, we are concerned that the interventions that we have integrates what we call our cross-cutting theme. So these are gender equality. So whatever opportunities there are open to both women and men. And not only that all the data that we gather are sex disaggregated data. And that we try going even further by analyzing what are the different needs of women and men. So provide economic information, develop local economy profiles that incorporate strategic environment assessment, including climate change and disaster risk reduction. We have experienced how crucial this is to our economic development. So our not too far distant experiences with disasters, I think, have taught us a lesson or two on how important it is to consider these environmental considerations. And then, in the conduct of industry value chain analysis, we integrate gender equality, environmental sustainability, and poverty reduction considerations. So in the value chain, where can the women benefit? Where can the poor benefit? In the value chain, what are the hazards to our environment? Now, the mechanisms for doing this, the suggested mechanisms, are, as I said, at the national level, a national economic transformation team. So these are national agencies with LED support functions who agree to come together for a horizontal coordination and shared delivery of LED services. So it provides a strategic policy and managerial platform because national agencies are able to review their different policies and to see whether they are harmonized, no, or they run counter to one another. It ensures a more comprehensive LED support program that encompasses the 3 LED service windows. It will not impinge on NGA mandates. So NGAs are still able to do what they are supposed to do, but they do it together, they harmonize their programs, they create synergy by doing so. And they effectively link the LGUs to appropriate government and private agencies with LED programs so that it is easier for local government units and the communities to access this national support from government. At the regional or provincial level, we have local economic transformation teams. So these are action teams at the regional and or provincial levels. They are the people who actually deliver the programs and services. So they are delivery mechanisms for LED support services to LGUs. So because they are coming together, we can say that greater efficiency and effectiveness will result. It is flexible rather than structured, meaning that we don't immediately say, let's create a council or let's create a committee. Let's find out first what the local government units and the communities need, and then identify the national agencies that are needed and get them together. So we don't create a blanket structure or organization. So it is strategic, it is dynamic, and it is a synergistic way of working together where the lead role adjusts. So it's not this agency who chairs it forever. It depends on what the LGU needs. So it's flexible, depending on the local LED initiative. Okay, so we have some examples of how such an economic transformation team, or the ETT, national ETT, the local ETT will look like. If you have a project on tourism, and if you have a project on agribusiness. So that ends my presentation.